Hello, everyone. I'm Tamara Banks, and welcome to Denver Decides. This community partnership is dedicated to accessible and transparent elections. The partnership includes the League of Women Voters of Denver, Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation, and Historic Denver. Denver Decides is presented by Denver 8 TV. Today, we are presenting a candidate forum in anticipation of the municipal election coming up on Tuesday, May 7th. Among other offices, this election includes the candidates vying to represent District 4 as a member of Denver's City Council. District 4 is located in southeast Denver. Our format is a pretty standard one. The candidates have timed opening and closing statements. The opening statements will be followed by rounds of questions that have been submitted by the organizers of the forum and possibly from you in the audience. Since we do have a time limit, we may not be able to get to all of the questions submitted. All of the candidates will answer all of the questions, and all of their responses will be timed. Our timers are right out front where our candidates can see them very clearly. So let's begin by meeting the candidates vying to represent District 4 as your next City Council member. And please hold your applause until both candidates have been introduced. The candidates are standing left to right, facing the audience in the order that their names appear on the May ballot. So to my right is Colleen Zaharodnicek, and standing to my left is Kendra Black. Welcome to both of you. Let's give them a big round of applause. We'll begin with 1-minute opening statements from each of the candidates, and let's begin with an opening statement from Colleen.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for having me. My name is Colleen Zaharodnicek. You can thank my husband for the slightly difficult to pronounce last name. He's from the Czech Republic. My maiden name was Flynn, so you can tell I didn't have any intention of getting into politics when I got married. I'm a first-time candidate, and I am running for office because I want to be a champion for the vulnerable and the marginalized, not just the special interests in Denver. I grew up in Denver in a middle-class family. We've always been able to work hard and have a nice lifestyle. As a real estate broker, I have found firsthand it's becoming more and more difficult for average people to succeed in Denver. I want to make Denver a safe, just, and equitable city for all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. An opening statement from Kendra. 1 minute, please.
Thank you for having me here. I'm Kendra Black. I am the incumbent city council person representing Southeast Denver, and no one knows the district better than I do. I have a decades-long history of community service in Southeast Denver. I'm most proud of when in the 1990s I saw a need for a neighborhood park. I pulled the community together and created that park, and I've never stopped working for my community since. I ran in 2015 because I saw an opportunity to take my community involvement to the next level. I ran to advocate for Southeast Denver and the nearly 60,000 people who live there, and that's what I've done. I've engaged thousands of residents to hear what they want, and that's guided my work. Improved land use and planning, improved mobility options, safety improvements. Seniors are a top priority for me, and I'm most excited to be working with the University Hills North neighborhood and Denver Parks and Rec to hopefully acquire land and build a much-needed park in that neighborhood. Stay tuned for updates. Citywide, I continue. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. And we're paying very close attention to the stops, so we want to make sure we're on time. Thank you for that. We're going to start now with our questions, and we'll begin with you, Kendra. You get to answer the first question, and you'll get 1 minute to answer. How can the more suburban, mid-century legacy of District 4 evolve to meet Denver's current needs? Sort of the second part of that is, what do you want to see changed, and what would you like to see retained or restored?
So as I said earlier, I have engaged thousands of residents in my district, and the things they love most are our suburban neighborhoods, but they really want improvements on our commercial corridors. We've got wide, busy streets like Colorado Boulevard and Hampton that were designed around the car, and people want to see more mainstream walkable land use and make them more pedestrian friendly and bike friendly.
All right, thank you. Colleen, same question.
Thank you. So I think the priorities of Southeast Denver are to make sure that we continue to preserve some of our housing affordability. We're one of the last pockets in town to be partially affordable. I would also like to increase multimodal transit and increase our neighborhood safety because of the police being overburdened in other parts of the district, dealing with public health issues. They aren't able to patrol our area as much as a lot of our citizens would like. Housing affordability is something that we can attain by introducing gentle density, which would be slightly upzoning parts of our district in order to allow things like accessory dwelling units and duplexes and triplexes.
All right. Our next question is submitted by the neighborhood organizations, and we'll start calling with you this time, and you'll have 1 minute to answer. It seems this election has an undertone of old Denver versus new Denver to it. Which do you consider yourself and why?
I'm both old Denver and new Denver, which is hopefully not too typical of a politician answer for you. I did grow up here. We've been here since 1984. We moved here before it was cool to be here. And I grew up here, loved living here. I did move to Eastern Europe in 2010 where I met my husband. I convinced him to move back to Denver because I loved it so much, and we moved back in 2013 to the new Denver that many now middle class and working class people are struggling to make it in, which is an additional reason that I decided to run for office because I remember Denver how it used to be, and I do think that we can join old and new together without as much animosity as we currently have.
All right. And Kendra?
I am definitely old Denver, but a forward-looking old Denver. I'm a Denver native. As I said earlier, I was born and raised in my district. I raised my own children in that district. My mother is a Denver native. I know the city very, very well. I'm also a historian, so I'm very committed to preserving our historic places and our historic neighborhoods. But I'm also forward-looking, and we need to plan for the future with many more people probably moving here. Since 1990, 2 million people have moved to the metro area, and DRCOG is telling us that 1.5 million more people will move here in the next 20 years. So we need to preserve what we love most about Denver, but we also need to plan for that future in our land use and our transportation planning.
All right, thank you. Our next question for the candidates running for City Council District 4, and Kendra will begin with you this time. District 4 seems to have a mix of older citizens who may want things to stay the same, and younger people moving into the district who want a lot of change. How do you keep both happy and voting for you?
Well, as I said, I have had dozens of community meetings, and I have encouraged all people to come from all walks of life and all ages. I've gone to back-to-school nights and PTAs to encourage younger people to come. And then I've gone into neighborhood groups to try and get older people to come to talk about what they'd like to be different. All groups really want to preserve our neighborhoods. They are the thing people love most about Southeast Denver. And most people also agree that we need some improved land use along those corridors. And when you think about Hampton and Colorado Boulevard in particular, there's a lot of old, dated businesses and land use that aren't very nice. And so even the older and younger people agree that they'd like to see something different there. They might disagree on what that is. From the younger people, we hear over and over, why don't we have a brewery in this district, or why don't we have a beer garden? So maybe that's not something the older people are asking for, but I think there is a lot of agreement.
Okay. Colleen, same question. 1 minute, please.
I think the best way to try to keep everybody happy, which is very difficult to do, is to really make sure that everything is community-centered and not centered and focused on why developers are bringing in business. I think that we've seen many other parts of town be decimated because a developer has decided to come into it and dictate what that community will look like in the future. So far, Southeast Denver has been able to avoid that, but that is not something that we're going to be able to avoid for much longer because, as Kendra mentioned, we do have a lot of areas that be considered areas of opportunity. So in order to make sure that we keep as many people happy as possible, at least, we really need to make sure we're bringing the community together, and we can listen to changing things and keeping some things the same, but as long as it's community focused and not developer driven, that's the way we're going to keep people happy.
All right, Colleen, you get to answer the first question, or the first time around here for this next round. In your opinion, has Council District 4 received the same or an appropriate amount of resources from the city as other districts have?
I don't think that our council district has received the same or a similar amount of other districts. We have been historically known as the forgotten fourth, and I do know that it is sometimes difficult because we are seen as more suburban, more residential, maybe not as glitzy or glamorous as downtown or other areas. But obviously, we all live down here in Southeast Denver for a reason, and I think that we need to continue to make sure that we champion our district as much as we can while balancing the city's resources for us, but making sure that we are not overtaken by developers like Jefferson Park, for example.
Thank you. Now, Kendra?
I forgot the question. What was the question?
Sure, no, that's okay. No, that's all right. In your opinion, has Council District 4 received the same?
Right, of course, yes. No, it hasn't. In fact, that's why I ran 4 years ago. This district has not received a lot of resources from the city, and private or public investment is really important to keep your city current. If you look at the bond in 2017, the bond in 2007, and the previous one in 1999, this district got very, very single-digit minimal amounts of funding. And I have been advocating so we can get more of those resources down here. So in the 2017, I got additional money for Hampton, I got money for Highline Canal Tunnel, for Yale pedestrian improvements. Those are the things that I've really been fighting for since my time on council.
All right, thank you. And Kendra, you get to be the first to answer this next question, and that is, the City of Golden recently published a notice to stop building permit approvals, a building moratorium, in fact, to take a breather, to absorb its growth, see how it plays out, and how it impacts transit, fire, police protection. Can Denver do the same thing as Golden has?
That is a very interesting question and a real dilemma in our city. We have a housing shortage, so when we talk about having a expensive housing and a housing crisis and an affordable housing crisis, it's a supply and demand issue, and we need more housing. So if we put a moratorium on housing, Denver will become more and more expensive, and that is what will happen in Golden. That is what has happened in Boulder and Aspen, two cities that did put growth limits on. So we have to find a way to balance that, but just to stop growth actually will make our housing more expensive.
Thank you. Colleen, same question.
I actually agree with Kendra on this. We can't stop growth because it is a supply and demand issue. The biggest concern about growth isn't necessarily how much we're getting, but who is leading that growth and who is being left out in those discussions. So I think that if we have more community who's able to feel comfortable with allowing more growth to happen, it's going to feel a little bit different than if someone feels like someone's just coming into their neighborhood, building ramshackle units and forcing people out who have been there forever. So while we cannot stop growth because it will just make everything more expensive, we really need to make sure that we are putting community first with growth.
All right, thank you. And our next question, Colleen, you'll be the first to answer this time. What or who are the major sources of funding for your campaign?
So that's a great question. I am running a grassroots campaign. So my sources for funding are regular people around the city. I do have a few union endorsements, but I am absolutely 100% grassroots funded from local people who are concerned about the direction that the city has been taking.
Thank you. Kendra.
I am also a grassroots candidate. I have 150 donations from people who live in my district, and I have another about 150 more people I went to high school with at Thomas Jefferson High School, people I went to the University of Colorado with, parents of my kids' friends, people I volunteered with over the years, people who I've worked with over the years, just people who believe in me and like what I'm doing on council. I do have business donations and donations from people in the construction industry. I think most candidates do, including you, Colleen. these are the people who are building the housing. So I don't think that we should demonize those people. We need housing, we need affordable housing, and it's actually developers who are bringing that to our city.
All right, thank you. That brings us to the final round of questions submitted by our forum organizers. And so, Kendra, you'll be the first to answer this question. And the question is, if elected or reelected, what would you like your legacy as a Denver City Council representative to look like?
That is so easy. So number one, I want a park in the University Hills neighborhood. That's something I'm working with that community on very hard, and that would be a tremendous legacy. Another one is the Highline Canal Tunnel at Yale and Hawley. People told me we weren't going to get it, but I got funding for it in that bond. I know it's going to be a while before we get it, but it's really important to people in my district.
Thank you. Colleen, your response.
Legacy. The biggest thing that I'm focused on is really serving the people of Southeast Denver. So it's not really about me and what I'm going to do. It's what I want to be able to join you and the rest of the community to make happen in Denver. I would really like to see something like a functioning transit system to move along, because we have great opportunity to actually be able to decentralize our car if we have the right motivation and the right people doing it. But I mean, legacy, I'm not running because it's about me. I'm running to serve the people.
All right, now it's time for our lightning round, in which our candidates will be asked several short questions, and they can only answer in yes, no, or pass, and only yes, no, or pass. No expanding, no explaining. We'll return to ballot order, and we'll begin with Colleen and then Kendra. First question. Do you believe that Denver's current plans to expand and repair sidewalks are adequate?
No.
No.
Do you see a new political party forming in Denver around anti-growth?
Yes.
No.
Do you think Denver needs more green space?
Yes.
Yes.
Should the city of Denver create a mechanism that would hold the mayor more accountable?
Yes.
Yes.
Have you done any volunteer work in your district?
Yes.
Yes.
Should Denver expand its use of photo red light enforcement?
No.
Yes.
In the 5 years since it was legalized, have you personally tried any of the various products offered by recreational marijuana stores?
Yes.
Yes.
Was the salary and benefit package that comes with the job of being city council a factor in your deciding to run for office?
No.
No.
Have you attended your neighborhood association meeting in the last 6 months?
No.
Yes.
Have you ridden or used a rental scooter or bike for business or fun in the last 6 months?
No.
Yes.
If you live in a freestanding home, do you shovel the snow off your front sidewalk after the storm?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you currently own or do you plan to own an electric car?
No, I don't own. But yes, I plan to own. That's a
I
two-part.
know that is a two-part question. I should have caught that. Yeah, so you can answer your first
So
answer.
no, I don't own one. Yes, I plan to own one.
Kendra, the same for you.
I own a hybrid, and my next car will be electric.
Thank you. Do you believe that Denver is a world-class city?
No.
Yes.
All right. Next, we're going to switch things up just a little bit. For this round, it's going to be the candidates' turn to ask questions. Not of me, of course, but they'll ask each other a question, and we'll go in ballot order. So, Colleen, it's your turn to ask Kendra a question, and Kendra, you'll have 1 minute to answer.
Perfect. So we did talk a little bit about fundraising. How much have you raised from people who lobby the city?
I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Kendra, now it's your turn to ask Colleen a question.
What would you like to work on in Southeast Denver that's something different than I'm working on in Southeast Denver, and how would you achieve that goal?
That's a good question. I actually think we align on a lot of things. I don't think that, unfortunately, you are pushing as hard as you could be. And I think that unfortunately you agree with the mayor's agenda a little bit too much versus the people's agenda. But we do align in many ways. We are both Democrats, after all.
All right, next round, and Kendra, it's your turn to, pardon me, let's continue with the, let me see, this time, Colleen, you get to ask first, sorry.
You might have already addressed this, but what would be your top priority if reelected?
My top priority is to continue on all of the projects that I've been working on with my constituents, which are improved land use and mobility and planning around the district.
Okay, now Kendra, your chance to ask Colleen a question.
So I know you're a realtor, and you talk about how that informs your knowledge on affordable housing. So what specifically would you do differently for affordable housing in Denver with your realtor knowledge?
Yes, that's a good question. So actually, a couple weeks ago, you at City Council were dealing with a couple who was looking to rezone their property for an accessory dwelling unit, and the comment was made how difficult that is. That is the complete jurisdiction of City Council to be able to zone for things like accessory dwelling units. As I mentioned in my opening statement, I would like to see parts of the city, specifically our part of the city. We have large lots. I think that we could sustain things like an accessory dwelling unit. I have a tiny house of about 900 square feet and a 7,000 square foot lot. I would love an accessory dwelling unit and be able to make that easy and affordable for people to be able to do. Being able to increase that product, as we both talked about, is the only way that we're going to be able to see any affordability.
All right, thank you. Now we move on to closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement, and we'll begin in reverse order of the opening statements, which means, Kendra, you get to start with your closing statement.
And it's 1 minute.
1 minute.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I would be honored to serve another 4 years to continue the work that my community and I have started. There are many exciting things in the work, from my annual South by Southeast Festival to some exciting new safety and land use improvements, and hopefully a new park. I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Colleen, your turn. Closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me and for this forum. I am asking for your vote by May 7th. Denver is at a crossroads. We could be going one of two directions: to be a city for all or to be a city for the elite. Right now, nearly every incumbent is being challenged, and there's a reason that lawyers, students, mothers, small business owners, social workers are stepping up. These are not roles that people normally take, and we're stepping up because we're concerned about our communities and we're concerned about what's going to be happening in the future. I want Denver to be a city that my daughter is proud to call home, and because of that, I will be a champion for the marginalized and the vulnerable. So please vote for Colleen Zaharodnychek. You can't pronounce my name, but that's okay, by May 7th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now let's give our candidates a big round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. Well done. You can breathe now.
Thank you.
And our thanks also to Denver Decides partners, which include Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation, the League of Women Voters of Denver, and Historic Denver. Denver Decides is presented by Denver 8 TV. We hope we've given you a fair look at each of the candidates vying to represent those of you who live here in District 4 on Denver City Council. For complete election information online, go to denverdecides.com. I'm Tamara Banks. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.